I got settled into my seat on the plane, heading home. I was looking out the window as we rose into the sky after 3 decades. I was finally coming back for good. I made the decision because I love my wife, Lisa. I got my trusty Zippo, a gift from her, with the inscription to my beloved husband, Alan. Congratulations, Marine. That's me, Alan Roberts, aka Machine Gunnery Sergeant Alan Roberts, or just Machine Weapon Rob to those close to me, has another title to add to the ranks. I've been retired from the military for over 30 years now. I wore a uniform with lots of different badges and ribbons on it, but they only meant something to me. I spent over 10 years in the reserves. I've done it all and collected all the shirts when Lisa and I got married years ago. I was already in good shape, having met her on the roadside one day after work. I was a mechanic at a big car dealership in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. I spotted her car with its hood up, steam billowing from the engine. I offered to help and quickly diagnosed the problem, a torn fan belt. I took her to the auto parts store and fixed it up. I got her back on the road in no time. She was really grateful. I thought I'd never make it back to Spokane. She just wanted me to get home safely. I said, "I'll repay you." She said, "Please." I said, "How about dinner? Do you like Red Lobster?" She said, "I love Red Lobster." I said, "Great. How about Friday at 7? 7 p.m. M sounds perfect. I confirmed that Friday marked the beginning of our journey together. 8 months later, I proposed, and in 1987, we tied the knot. Since then, I've been content. She moved to my home in northern Idaho, adding over 30 miles to her commute to work as a teacher in Spokane Valley. We considered relocating closer to her job, but I cherished our house, nestled on 5 wooded acres off Interstate 95, a legacy from my parents. My hope is to pass it down to our children someday, despite my monthly reserve commitments and annual. Lisa was always there for me, supporting me through thick and thin. Even when I was away on training, she never complained. She was always there for me, even when she made modest deposits into my IRA. Our daughter Renee arrived about 1.5 years into our marriage. Then in 1990, Saddam Hussein's invasion of Kuwait meant I was on active duty for over a year. When I returned, our son Carl joined our family. Then came the events of 9/11, which changed our lives. I was on active duty, shuttling between Camp Pendleton in California and Camp Lejeune in North Carolina. Lisa got certified to teach in both states and found work wherever she could. We relocated. My service included 3 tours in Iraq, 3 in Afghanistan, and 4 stints in Okinawa, totaling over 6 years. Despite the strain on Lisa and the kids, she never complained, but I knew the toll it took on her. This deployment was going to be her last at 56. I felt that desert warfare was for the young. My time to return home had come after 3 decades of service. You might expect I'd retired at a higher rank, and you'd be right. I was a typical Marine in some ways. I enjoyed drinks with comrades and defended them fiercely despite. I lost out on promotions for it, but I was happy to be a reliable leader. Gunnery Sergeant Gunny earned respect for taking care of his Marines at my retirement party. Lieutenant Colonel Reston, who had disciplined me, came by. We didn't hold a grudge. In fact, we'd become friends. He awarded me a commendation, sealing our friendship. He gave me a commendation, sealing our friendship. "I'm sure the Corps won't be the same without you, Gunny." He said it warmly, returning my smile. I replied, "Thanks, Colonel, but I trust it's in capable hands." Lance Corporal Dawson, accompanied by his buddies, approached and handed me a parcel wrapped in brown paper. "In brown paper, just a little something to remember us by," Gunny Rob said, grinning. Unwrapping it, I laughed at the sight of a hand-carved wooden hand with an extended middle finger. It brought back memories of my playful gestures. Turning it over, I noticed he'd etched the Marine Corps emblem and our unit designation on the back, a fitting memento. "Did you carve this yourself, Dawson?" I asked, grinning. They cheered and clapped, glancing at Staff Sergeant Joel Henson, my successor as company machine gunner. I offered some advice. "You look after these Marines well, Joel," I urged him, shaking his hand. "I will, Gunny," he assured me, smiling. "Good cuz, if you don't, I'll come." I joked, "Back and kick your back," which got more laughs. "Henson's a good man," Gunny Rob said, "but no one can replace you. Take care of yourself, Gunny. It's been an honor serving with you." After exchanging farewells, I headed for the exit, where the driver told me As the plane descended, I noticed the familiar sights of Spokane below the river, including the waterfall, Riverfront Park, and the Expo 74 Pavilion. Memories of sunny days there with Lisa and the kids flooded my mind. Disembarking, I scanned the crowd for Lisa. I'd texted her to let her know I was arriving, but she wasn't there yet. I grabbed my bags, hoping to see her soon. That's odd, I thought. I texted her again at the airport, but she didn't reply. I tried her cell phone, but it went straight to voicemail. I was concerned, so I called home, but there was no answer, so I left a voicemail for her. Her parents hadn't heard from her either. Her mother offered to give me a lift, but I said I'd wait and call her if I couldn't find another way. There was no point in her driving all this way. I'll call her when I know more. A stranger interrupted my thoughts. He offered me a lift. I thought my wife was here, but I said I was headed that way. He said it was a good idea. I agreed to take a cab. Thanks, let me cover the gas. He refused, saying the company card covers it. He explained that I could toss my bags in and settle in for the vacation. He guessed I was on my way to retirement. I corrected him, saying it was only 30 years in, with 30 more to go. He observed that it had been a long day. He introduced himself as John Sykes. I agreed. I was texting Lisa and got a ride. TC is home, so any plans? He asked, pulling into the driveway. Not much, I said. I shrugged. Fishing, hunting, enjoying time with my wife. I hear you. He chuckled. I retired from the Army after 25 years as a lieutenant colonel. Retirement's not all. I asked what he did now. He said he ran a camp for men up north. I was surprised and asked what it was for. He explained that it helps men facing tough personal situations. I asked about infidelity, for example. He said that they also deal with that. I commented that it sounded intense. He said that they stay for 3 months, like boot camp. I asked if he had ever been a drill instructor. He said that he had been in Paris, Island, South Carolina. I confirmed he'd been promoted from sergeant to staff sergeant there, so you're familiar with our methods. He noted he was impressed and felt a strong curiosity about the camp. I've been given approval to bring in a senior instructor to oversee the staff, welcome new students, and manage the curriculum. I was interested, as it definitely seemed like we'd crossed paths for a reason. You're perceptive, Alan, he complimented. The company has had an eye on you for a while. I questioned why you're a local. He told me he was a combat veteran with an impressive record. He said that I was exactly what they needed, and that his company had been watching me. I asked him, wary, yes? And he confirmed that they were waiting for me to retire. He said that the job suited me perfectly, with better pay and benefits, and that I would report directly to him. I was intrigued, but there was a catch, wasn't there? He nodded and handed me a folder. I took a look inside and found a report detailing my wife's affair with her school principal, Elroy McEnroe, which had spanned over 2 decades. I was shocked and watched the enclosed video. DVD, where did you get this? I asked. I won't sugarcoat it, Alan replied. The company vetted you after I expressed interest in hiring you. I assume you weren't aware. No clue. I admitted I was taken aback. How do you know it's been going on for 2 decades? Our investigators are thorough, he explained. They've got the latest gear. They pieced it together from conversations between your wife and McEnroe. She's been hiding it well. It made sense. Now her frequent visits while I was away made up half of the past 20 years. I thought about the kids. I asked him, they're yours? Yes, he said. How can you be sure? Our investigators confirmed it. They matched your children's DNA to yours. I bet you had a feeling she wasn't meeting me at the airport. Right. Investigators say they meet regularly after school, but once a week they go to your place for a case. Then he drives home. That's been their routine while you've been away, and tonight they usually head to your house. Dang, I muttered. That's a 70 meters round. A quick fling? How could she? He shrugged and said, long trips, time away from family. War changes people in ways we don't realize. It strains even the best marriages. So what now? If all this checks out, divorce is my only option, I concluded. John nodded and agreed. He said, what about him? I'd like to tear him apart. I admitted that, but I won't risk jail. I'll find another way. All the details are in the report. John assured me that her husband is married with 2 kids who are unaware of his affair with Lisa. You swear this is accurate? I pressed him further and he affirmed that everything was true. He said that if I doubted it, I wouldn't have shown me the report. I apologized and said that he didn't deserve this. Who does then? I pondered. Well put, John agreed. We arrived at my house, nestled in a secluded area, which is really off the beaten track. The property is a great place to retire, but it looks like it's just me for now. John handed me a business card and urged me to call him when I'm ready. He also suggested I come to camp, introduce me around, and give me a tour. We've got counselors too if I need them, but this comes first. I nodded in understanding and thanked him for the trip, the offer, and everything. I'll handle it, I promised him. We shook hands and I got out of the SUV, grabbing my bag and clothes. He turned around and drove off, and I headed for the front door. I carried my things into the bedroom and put everything in its place. I was still in shock at what John had said, but I noticed that everything was neat as a pin, just the way Lisa always liked it. She may be a cheating strumpet, I thought, but at least her house is clean. After putting everything away, I changed into my uniform, jeans and a t-shirt. I grabbed my folder and went downstairs. I needed to see what else was in that report. I pulled out the DVD and put it in the player. I turned on the TV and started the DVD. I saw Lisa and Elroy in a motel-like room. "When are you going to dump him?" he asked. "I don't know. Probably not for a while." She replied that she wouldn't leave him until he retires. If you play your cards right, you could get half of his retirement checks and most of his savings and 401k. Elroy said that was her plan. I muttered, "Good thing I have the prenup she signed when we first got married." Dad had the form ready for me when I thought, darn it, all I had to do was put her name on it. I'd heard enough, so I pulled out the phone book and called to make an appointment with a family law attorney for the next morning. I went upstairs and gathered some of her things, setting the bags by the door. Screw her, I thought. If she wants to leave, I'll let her go. Afterward, I spent some time on the couch, reflecting on my life with Lisa. As far as I knew, things were fine between us. Sure, we had the same problems that every married couple has, but we always worked them out. I always thought that if she was going to cheat on me, it would be with someone much bigger than myself. I couldn't imagine that she would settle for a marshmallow man. In fact, I even laughed out loud when I thought about it. However, in all the years we'd been together, I'd never once guessed that our lovemaking was causing her physical pain. She had never told me about it. What surprised and impressed me was that she was always trim, even after our children were born. I made my way to my office and opened the cabinet where I kept my indoor tools. There on a shelf was an unopened package of duct tape. There were 2 rolls in the package, and as I was looking at them, I had a sudden thought. I took the duct tape and the package of zip ties and closed the cabinet. I walked over to the weapon cabinet, opened it, and pulled out a .45 caliber pistol. I made sure it was empty, then went back to the dining room. I spread everything out on the table, made a sandwich, grabbed a beer, and sat at the table waiting for them to arrive. It was starting to get dark when I heard a car pull into the garage. A couple of minutes later, I heard the 2 of them giggling and talking as they came in. Lisa opened the door. They didn't see me sitting at the table until they were in the main part of the house. Lisa's eyes widened when she saw me at the table. She asked Alan, "When did you get here? Didn't you get my emails and messages?" She added, "Sorry, my phone battery died. Things aren't what they seem, Alan. I'm telling you, it's not you and Elroy getting ready to have fun in our bed." Elroy motioned toward me, and I raised my weapon. He froze, his eyes widening and his face pale. There were no bullets in the weapon. In fact, there was no magazine. It didn't even fit in the pistol grip, but they didn't know that. "Oh God," he screamed, "please don't do this." I noticed a wet spot in the lap of his pants and smiled. The idiot had wet himself. "Shut up, creep," I said. "You think you can entertain another man's wife for over 20 years and get away with it?" "I don't think so. Stand against the tree." I told him to put his back against it and put his hands behind his back. I looked at Lisa and told her to tie him to the tree. I just want to see his eyes and nose move. She took the first roll of tape and began gently applying it to his skin. She was really slow. I told her to hurry up and run. She started running around the tree, putting tape on as she went. When the first roll was used up, I gave her the second and told her to keep going. By the time she was done, Elroy was attached to the tree in a cocoon of duct tape, with only his eyes and nose visible. He was looking back and forth, fearfully. I walked over to him and made sure he couldn't move. Then I looked into his eyes, smiled, and pulled out my cell phone. I dialed his home number, which I had thanks to the report John had given me. The phone rang a few times, then a female voice said, "McEnroe Residence, Judy speaking." "Hello, Mrs. McEnroe. My name is Alan Roberts. Is your husband Elroy there?" "No, he's got a meeting with the teachers at his school." "Could I take a message and ask him to call you back?" "No, that won't be necessary. I apologize for I'm sorry to be the one to tell you this, but your husband is at my house with my wife. I think you should come and get him." I saw Elroy's eyes grow even wider under the tape. "What is he doing in your house with your wife?" Judy asked. "They were going to have sex, but changed their minds." I replied. Judy yelled, "Are you sure about that? Is this some kind of sick joke?" "No, ma'am," I replied. "It's not a joke. They've been having an affair for over 20 years. I'm going to kick his rear," she shouted. "God damn it, I'll come and get him." "Where are you located?" I asked. "Idaho, east of AOL on Highway 95, I said. "I'll send you directions." "Thanks, Mr. Roberts." After we finished talking, I texted her directions to my house. Then I looked at Elroy, who was even more scared than before. "I'm going to have a little talk with my wife right now if you don't worry." I told him not to go anywhere. "Did you hear me?" He tried to shake his head, but the tap wouldn't let him. I gestured for Lisa to go inside, and she steed aside. I followed her when we got into the house. I motioned for her to sit on the couch and held the remote for the TV. I asked, "How long has this been going on?" She replied, "Before you say anything, remember that I know a lot more than you think. It's been going on for a while." "I see. When did it start?" She said, "We worked together for years and never did anything while you were home. We only got together when you were gone, including all those times I was sent overseas." I asked, and she nodded yes. She said, "I'm sorry. I never meant to hurt you. You weren't supposed to find out about it. So while I was fighting terrorists and getting shot in the back, you were here having fun with this piece of crap in our bed." I asked, and she started crying. I told her, "Answer the damn question." She wiped her eyes and nodded yes. She said, "Please, we can get past this, can't we? Let's give it another chance." I asked, "Are you kidding me? You think I should just turn a blind eye to your cheating? Give me one good reason why I shouldn't just fire you on the spot." She said, "It shouldn't concern us, and I don't want to." I knew she was lying because I'd heard what she'd said to Elroy. "It's too late for that." I said, "I'm seeing a lawyer tomorrow." She looked at me defiantly and said, "You don't want to do that. Elroy told me that if you try to divorce me, I can get half your pension, the house and everything." I laughed and held out the prenup. "There's just one problem. You signed a prenup years ago that's still valid and ironclad. You don't get a thing if I can help it. The house is mine. Remember, my parents willed it to me, and the prenup clearly states what happens and if there's any infidelity. Don't worry, I'll stick to the agreement. You'll get 40% of our joint savings, but no support, and I'll keep all of my retirement contributions." "I'll fight you," she said. "I figured you'd say that," I said, pointing the remote at the TV. I pressed play and a video of her appeared on the screen. When Elroy appeared on the screen, her face went white and she covered her mouth with her hand. "Oh my God," she gasped. "How did you get this? Please turn it off." I shook my head. "It doesn't matter how I got it. What matters is what your school board will do when they get a copy of." She looked at me, shocked. "I'm going to lose my job," she said, "and so will Elroy." "Please, don't do this. Just sign the papers when you get them," I asked, defeated. She nodded. I turned up the volume on the video and fast-forwarded to the part where she complained that I was too big. I asked her, "Can you explain that to me? I've been with you for all these years and you never complained once. Why didn't you say anything? I didn't want to hurt your feelings." She said, "At first, I liked it and you always turned me on, but after a while, it started to hurt, and that's why. You started making excuses not to have sex with me." I asked, and she nodded. She said, "I'm really sorry." "Yeah, that's what you said." I grabbed her purse and pulled out her keys. I took out her house keys and then her wallet. I took out her at the moment and general credit card. I took her STCU card. I knew she had an account at the Spokane Teachers Credit Union and regularly contributed 10% of her paycheck to that account. If she needed money, she could use that account. I put her purse back on the couch. I guess I should probably leave. I told her, "You still have some explaining to do. You need to tell your parents and our children about what you did so they know why we're divorcing." She begged, crying, "Please don't make me do this." I asked, "Why did you do it?" She said, "You've had no problem cheating on me for 2 decades. Surely you're not ashamed of what you did." "They'll hate me." She started crying. "That's too bad," I said, picking up the phone. I was about to call her parents when I saw the glow of headlights pulling into the driveway. I figured it was Judy coming to get her husband. "Ah, Judy is here. You can start by explaining to her why you entertained her husband." There was a knock on the door. I opened it and saw, the woman who answered the door was a little younger than me, and she looked quite attractive. She was wearing her ripped jeans perfectly tight, and I couldn't help but notice that she was looking at me even more than I was looking at her. I asked her, "Are you Alan Roberts?" She glanced at my lap and said, "Yes." She said, "Please come in." I said, as I opened the door, "Where's that piece of crap hiding?" she asked. I smiled when she said that. I liked this woman immediately. "He's a little tied up right now," I said. I assure you, Judy looked at Lisa. Her face was red with rage. "It's you, Cal, having fun with my soon-to-be ex-husband," she said, her eyes widening as she recognized my wife. "Oh my God, it's you, Lisa Conroy. I should have known." "Please stop," Lisa said, her voice raised. "Shut up, you goddamn strumpet," Judy wailed. "I have to kick your back by the middle of next week. How can you do that? You're married to this gorgeous piece of man meat, and you're cheating." Judy stopped to look at me. "Where is that nasty idiot?" she asked. "I'll take you to him," I said. "Wait," I replied, going to my office and opening the cabinet that held the duct tape. I quickly found what I was looking for: a box cutter, a bottle of 90% isopropyl alcohol, and a fairly clean rag that used to be a t-shirt. I went back to the front room and invited Judy to follow me. We went outside and I pointed to the tree where I had secured Elroy. Judy burst into laughter when she saw that he was wrapped in duct tape. Elroy wasn't too happy to see his wife, and I could see the terror in his eyes. "I like your style, Alan," she said. "It's going to take forever to get him out of this." I shook my head and put the spork and rag on the ground. "No, it won't take long," I said. She held up her hand and said, "Wait a second." She walked over to him and stared him in the eye. "You're a damn creep," she said, removing her rings and throwing them on the ground. "You haven't touched me in months, and now I know why." I realized this was the woman I didn't want to anger. I pulled out a box cutter and cut the eye, then used the tape to bind Elroy's hands and feet. Once he was free, he fell to the ground, writhing in agony. "Get up," I told him. "Get your back in the house. He's been more fun to be with than I've had in years." Judy watched Elroy run inside. "Please, haven't you done enough?" she pleaded. "No," I said. "Call your mom and put her on speakerphone." Lisa dialed her parents. "Hi, Mom," she said when she answered. "It's me, Lisa," she said, her voice quivering. "Lisa," your mother said. "What's wrong? Are you hurt?" "He found out I cheated on him," Lisa replied, her eyes brimming with tears. "Why is he doing that?" "You did what?" her mother asked, her voice laced with anger. "How could you do that to your husband? I thought I raised you better than that. What's wrong with you? I don't blame him for kicking you out. Mom, can I stay with you for a while?" "I think so, but not for too long," I said. "I know it won't be easy, but I'll get through it." "I'm so sorry, Alan," Lisa's mother said. "You were always so good to her." "I don't know what got into her head," I replied. "Please stay in touch." "I will," she said. "Thank you," I replied. "You have 2 more calls to make," she said. "Get on it." "Don't make me do it," I said. "They deserve to know." To hear the truth, Lisa picked up the phone and called our son Carl. "Hi," he said. "It's Mom," she replied. "Are you okay?" "No," he said. "Your father and I are getting a divorce." "What?" she asked. "Did Daddy cheat on you or something?" "No," he said. "I cheated on your daddy and he found out." "Mom, how could you?" he asked. He asked if his dad was there. I said, "I'm here, son." I told him I was fine, but I felt he needed to know the truth. His mom has been doing this for over 20 years. I only found out about it today. "Oh my God," he said. "I'm so sorry to hear that." "I'm sorry, Carl." "Yeah, sorry you got caught." "Look, Mom, I can't believe you did that to Dad. I'm sorry. I'll talk to you later." The conversation ended, and Lisa was in tears as she sat on the couch. I said, "Lisa, look, your eyes are red, and please, I'm begging you." She said, "No more, 1 call." I said, "Make it a quick call." Lisa dialed our daughter's number. The call went pretty much the same as the others, but Renee was far more upset than Carl. She said, "You stupid cow." When Lisa told her what was going on, "I hope Daddy kicks your slimy back to the curb." "Kicks your slimy back to the curb," Lisa said. "How can you be so stupid? You're not my mother right now. I don't know who you are. You better get your act together or you'll never see your grandchildren." "Don't call me ever again," Lisa said, her voice thick with emotion. "Goodbye," she said, her eyes brimming with tears. Renee ended the call. "Are you beginning to realize the consequences of your actions?" she asked. "I asked you to consider that you have completely destroyed 2 families with your selfishness. I hope you're happy." Wiping her eyes, Lisa listened to me speak. I told her I was sorry, and she said everyone hates her now. Well, what you sow is what you reap. Stuff nodding her head, Lisa went upstairs, picked up the suitcase and overnight bag I had placed by the bedroom door, and went back downstairs. Judy stopped her before she went out the door. "Wait a sec," Judy said. "So if I got this right, your husband's been getting close to mine for over 20 years. Judy smiled. "It's been a while since I've been with a real man, and yours seems pretty comfortable." She glanced at me. "What do you think? I'm up for a little payback." "I guess you've got a point, Lisa. You're not being very humble, are you? Oh, and remember to take out the trash." The door closed behind Lisa, and she glanced back at me one last time. "Sorry, Alan," she said, and with that, she turned and left. She was gone, and so was my chance with her. We watched as Lisa drove off, my eyes moistening. "You okay?" Judy asked. "Yeah, just something in my eye," I replied, wiping it away. "Crap," she murmured, smiling. I chuckled, she said, "and I wondered how you walk away from 30 years. Open up to new possibilities," Judy murmured. I nodded. "You really didn't know any of this?" she asked. I shook my head. "Nope. I just found out today. She was at it while I was on a trip." "What about you? Did you know about him?" I admitted. I had my suspicions. Her perfume was on him and his clothes. I never caught him. I figured it might come to this. "What's your next move?" I'm not sure. At the moment, I'm not sure. I'm a wife and mom. That's all I ever wanted. My mom raised me. She was very traditional and taught me that the best job for a woman was to stay at home and look after the family. I married straight out of high school and never had a paying job. I just wanted to keep my husband happy and raise my kids right. But I'll figure it out. I nodded and said I was sure she'd bounce back. Did you mean what you said earlier about love? I asked. She laughed. Would you like to stay over? I offered. Are you sure? I'd enjoy I told her I wouldn't mind having some company. That night we made love before sleep. I asked why she was sticking with him. She said, believe it or not, I loved him once. She also said he was good to her and the kids. I told her I loved my wife too. She said she felt the same. She agreed the marriage was done, so what's next? I asked her if she meant for us. She said yes. I nodded. Alan Roberts, I like you too. I'd like to see where this goes. I'd like that too. She smiled. She said, good morning, lover. She greeted him with a smile. As she left, she added, I did my morning routine and showered and put on my Class C uniform. She then dressed and made her way downstairs. Judy's eyes widened at the sight of me. Are you in the Army? She asked. No, I'm in the Marines, I replied. I'm on terminal leave before retirement. She eyed the ribbons and badges on my chest. What are those for? She inquired. Different things, I replied. This one is in the wrong place, I explained, pointing to a Purple Heart ribbon with 3 stars. Oh my God, you were wounded in combat 4 times. What an idiot, she muttered. He'll pay for that after breakfast. We stepped outside. She requested that I call her after she got home, and I agreed. The lawyer meeting went smoothly after reviewing my evidence, including the prenup and financial data. He concluded that, given her income, alimony seems unlikely. The house and pension are protected, but the bank account will need to be split according to the prenup. When do you want to file? I need this done as soon as possible, I emphasized. Great, he replied. Getting it to Washington might need a bit of extra effort, but we can manage that. I'll handle the paperwork and filing. If all goes smoothly, we could finalize it early next week. You'll just need to cover the filing fee and my service charge. You can settle that with the receptionist on your way out. Handing me a sheet of paper, he continued, here's a checklist to safeguard your interests. Hopefully your wife hasn't acted at the I checked the list and saw that the bank visit was urgent. I could manage the rest online. When he asked if I had any questions, I shook my head. I didn't have any for now. I gave him my card and shook his hand. Feel free to reach out if you need to. Best of luck. When I left, I paid the fees and prepayment. Then I left. Once I was in the car, I saw that John was just finishing with the lawyer. I needed to sort some bank matters, but I wanted to talk about the job he'd mentioned. I'll be around, he said, looking forward to it. After our conversation ended, he texted me directions to the campground at the bank. I discovered that Lisa hadn't accessed the account yet. I withdrew 60% and opened a new account solely in my name. I canceled joint credit cards, paid off the balances, and ordered new at the moment, and credit cards for myself. Then I drove to the campground, which was roughly 35 miles northeast of home. Despite the longer drive, it provided time. In just one day, I went from being a contented married man looking forward to retirement with my wife to discovering over 20 years of betrayal, 6 of which were spent in a war zone risking my life. I realized I coped with Lisa's betrayal like I was facing armed adversaries in combat. Thankfully, there was Judy. I don't know how I'd cope without her. Her vitality, honesty, and prowess in bed were comforting, but I was afraid of rushing into something with her. After ending things with Lisa, I drove straight to Camp Rollins. The road was pretty narrow, but I managed to get there without any trouble. I drove up to a gate where I met a guard in camouflage. He was armed and ready. I told him my name was Alan Roberts and that I was there to see John Sykes. I gave him my ID and the junk card I'd been given. The guard looked at my truck and then went back to the shack. I waited for a few minutes and then saw him talking After a short wait, he handed back my documents. Commandant Sykes is expecting you. Welcome to Camp Rollins, Gunner Roberts, he said before I had a chance to thank him. He quickly opened the gate and waved as I drove through, negotiating several tight turns. I entered the military camp's premises, which were neat and tidy. Wooden structures bordered a central area where soldiers were drilling. The surroundings were well kept, with impeccably groomed lawns. I found the camp. I parked up and an attractive blonde greeted me. She was dressed professionally and smiled when I arrived. She said, "You must be Sergeant Roberts." I said, "Yes, I am." She said, "Welcome to Camp Rollins." She told me to wait while she went to get Commander Sykes. She came back with coffee and said, "Please have some coffee." I said, "That would be great." She said, "Of course." I knocked on the door and he said hello. He was on the phone and welcomed me in. I could see his rank because his uniform was khaki and had silver oak leaves on it. After he hung up, he got up to greet me. "Glad you made it," he said. "Please take a seat." I sat down as the receptionist brought my coffee. "Thank you," I said, taking a sip. "That's just what I needed." "No issues getting here?" he asked. "None," I replied. "Your directions were spot on." He nodded, and we got down to business. "Let me tell you about our visitors," he said. "Every man who enters is a victim. Many have been cheated on, and they're facing various forms of mistreatment. It's a combination of physical, emotional, and sometimes both. Betrayal and humiliation are also part of the picture." He went on to say that many of these men are what some might term wimps. I know it's not politically correct, but I value honesty. These men often lack strength physically and emotionally. Some feel helpless and don't know where else to seek support. Unfortunately, the women they're involved with exploit this vulnerability. I was surprised by his revelations. "So what's the approach?" I asked. "The next step is to help them focus and build up their physical strength." John explained that we don't let them use the internet or any electronics, like phones, laptops, or tablets, for 3 months. They have no online access at all, not even emails or Facebook. I joked that I bet they'll love that. Sometimes he said that some of them were addicted to their phones, unaware of the world around them. We get them to disconnect from that. We have to make sure they're not distracted so they can deal with their issues. "How do they stay in touch with their families?" I asked. John nodded. "We gave them a mailbox address for correspondence, which is only via regular mail. Post offices in Bonners Ferry and Clark Fork KLE deliveries are twice weekly. It's quite a trick to reach them. We try to stop their families disturbing them." He continued, "We've got armed guards, helicopters, and an electronic security perimeter. We've got a security perimeter around the camp, so anyone attempting unauthorized entry will be spotted." I asked if there had been any incidents, and Jan said that, thankfully, they've been able to stop any attempts. There's a briefing on that in the packet I'll send you. I asked what thwarted meant, and he told me. I asked about the training regiment, and he gave me a quick rundown. You'll find more detailed info in the packet I'll send you home with. John told me that the toughest part of the training for the students is disconnecting from modern technology and the web. They also have to do a lot of physical training, which is similar to the first phase of recruit boot camp. Their day starts at 5 a.m. with drills, and they move quickly everywhere with strict instructors. If you understand what I mean, by the second month, the students meet their counselors. They have intense counseling to address their issues, and they also have to do more physical training and self-defense. In the third month, we go over everything again and link it up with lawyers to tackle legal matters. He checked his watch and said, "Actually, there's a group session ongoing now. You might want to join." I said, "Sure." As we left his office, we went to another building. He gestured for me to go in first, so I did. I saw a group of men in a semicircle. A female counselor, the instructor by the door, stiffened at John's arrival, then nodded at me before resuming his seat, silently. We took our places at the back and observed one of the students recount how his wife had degraded him, compelling him to service her lovers by mouth and backside while mocking his manhood. Tears welled up in his eyes, and his fellow students offered reassurance, patting him on the shoulder. I looked over at the instructor, a big guy with a sergeant chevron, and saw that he was calm, though his clenched jaw showed he was angry. The student was crying, and the counselor was helping him. I decided I'd join this organization if I could help these guys. After more counseling, J.N. signaled for me to join him, and we left. He took me on a tour of the camp, showing me its facilities, then we left. We then did a tour of the camp, checking out the facilities. After that, we went to the instructor's quarters, where we found several men in khaki shirts like John. Some had sergeant chevrons, while others had staff sergeant insignias. John gathered them in the central area and introduced me. I chatted with them for a bit and found out that half were former Marine Corps drill instructors, and the other half were it was clear from our conversation that the Army NCOs are a close-knit bunch who are genuinely invested in their students' well-being. One of them asked if I was interested in joining the team. I told him I was, and he told me that John had asked John to be the new senior instructor. John is on terminal leave for now, but John wants him to spend some time here getting acquainted with everyone. The others nodded in agreement, and one of them said, "Welcome aboard, Gunny." The others echoed, "Thank you." We went back to John's office, and we discussed work and camp activities. He smiled and shook my hand. "Why did you decide to join us after hearing that man's counseling session?" he asked. I explained that I'd realized these things actually happen. I used to think they were just internet stories. "Yeah," J.N. said, "it's more common than people realize. I should make you an official proposal," he added with a laugh, handing me the document. I was blown away by the salary and benefits on offer. I accepted, of course, John said, passing me a stack of folders and some light reading to keep me busy for the next few weeks. I laughed and replied, "Feel free to visit any time. You'll definitely want to attend the cow burning ceremony." I asked about the tradition at the end of each session. He explained that I'd find it interesting. After bidding farewell, I grabbed my folders and headed home. The following 3 weeks passed quickly. Lisa received and signed the divorce papers without contest. The attorney informed me that my divorce would be finalized in 30 days. Judy initiated the divorce. Proceedings against Elroy would take longer, around 90 days, since she filed in her home state of Washington. I never heard from Lisa again, and I wasn't interested. About 2 weeks after the divorce filing, her parents arrived to collect her chosen items from the house along with her belongings. I handed over a cashier's check for her share of the bank account. I got rid of all her accounts and photos. Lisa's mother said she was too embarrassed to face me, which didn't surprise me. Judy spent the last 3 weekends with me and we had a blast. I took her fishing on Lake Panda and she loved it, unlike Lisa, who wasn't keen on fishing. Judy was really into it. I was really eager to help out, even cooking the coconut salmon we caught. I made a point of visiting the camp a couple of times a week to chat with each instructor. I found out that they're all combat veterans and divorced, though a few are entering new relationships. I also attended several group counseling sessions to understand the students' motivations for being there and their stories. I was really moved by this. I also found out why the camp is so heavily guarded. It seems that one student had been targeted by an organization called Mace. He left his wife and went to the camp to get away from them, but Mace was determined to get him back. They even tried to attack the camp with guns, but the guards stopped them. The company introduced new rules saying that anyone mentioning Mace must contact the relevant agency. My research showed that the agency had been informed twice in the past year. By the end of the month, John invited me to watch the burning of the cow ceremony, which marked the end of the 3-month program. The ceremony took place over the course of a month. Donning my Class C uniform, I hit the road. John and I stood back as spectators as I observed the class members affix pictures of their wives to a straw figure, which was then hoisted and secured to a pole with a rope at the pole's base. There was a stack of firewood. One of the students was called forward and handed a lit torch, which they set the wood ablaze. "They then instructed the teacher, sir," I responded, igniting the stack of wood. The flame consumed the straw effigy quickly. The students chanted, "Burn, burn, burn," as the figure burned. They were excited and danced, chanted, and some even relieved themselves on the ashes. This continued until the figure was gone. "What's the purpose of all this?" I asked John, who then asked the men if this ritual helps them move on. He explained that it allows them to release their inner turmoil without resorting to violence against their spouses. They'll graduate tomorrow, ready to face life's challenges. Just imagine, 3 months ago they arrived as broken individuals. Tomorrow, they'll depart as reinvigorated men. I understood briefly and pictured Lisa, symbolically bound and consumed. Flame's words brought a subtle smile to my lips. "How are things at home?" he asked. "Proceeding well," I replied. "The divorce will conclude soon," he said. "I'm managing," I told him. "I'm coping better than expected," he replied. "Good to hear," he said. "Your break ends in a few days," I confirmed. "Yes," he said. 3 days precisely," he added. "Wonderful," he said. "I anticipate your readiness to meet our new students," he told me. "They arrive in," I said. "In 4 days you'll need this," he added, holding up a small box that glowed with a set of polished metal chevrons. "Are you a sergeant major?" I asked. "Yes," he confirmed. "That's your role as a senior instructor." "Congratulations." "Thank you," I replied, grinning. "No, thank you," he countered. "Thank you," I said. Over the next 4 days, I spent time with Judy Elroy and offered to buy out her share of the house, which she agreed to. It seemed like he intended to do that. To help Lisa move in and to speed up Judy's departure, I suggested she move in with me and she was happy to accept. I rented a trailer to help her move and settled her in with me. It would be a bit tight at first, but I was confident we could manage. Judy watched as I prepared for my first full day at camp, giving me a lavish breakfast and a farewell kiss as I left. She said she would keep up with them. I said I was up for seeing where my relationship with Judy would lead, even though I wasn't sure what to expect. She'd filled the gap left by Lisa, and I felt good about arriving at the campground. I checked my appearance in the mirror, adjusted my gear, and stepped onto the porch overlooking the group of men on the trail. "Oh my God," I said, scanning the small cluster of men gathered in the... I couldn't believe it. How were they expecting me to mold men when they didn't even send me proper people to start with? I told the sergeant to remove this pathetic lot from my sight and start processing them before I lost my temper. As they left, I turned and spotted John. He was grinning from ear to ear. "Excellent job," I told him. "Welcome to Camp Rollins."